Well, welcome everyone. My name is Risa Shimoda and I work at the River Management Society. We're thrilled that you're here. We hope that you stay warm if it's cold where you are. And welcome to a topic that I think will be familiar to everyone here. And we'll have for sure two of the people who you see in these photos. Liz Lacey has a cold today and Bob Stanley is going to be coming in from Thailand. So we'll see if he makes it because it's timing is crazy for him. Just in one moment, we're letting a couple more people in. So here we go. We're welcoming you to the River Management Roundtables. We do them every first Tuesday of the month. Everyone is invited. It doesn't cost anyone anything to join us. So if you ever hear of someone who's interested, they're not sure if they, can, or if they're approved or whatever, anyone's welcome as long as they have the link. And then as we get going, be pretty mindful that we want to respect what other people have to say. This is a topic that is probably near and dear to lots of people's hearts. So, and we want to make sure that we're just fair to everyone who might be listening or participating. And if you're not speaking, please mute your audio just in case your dog starts barking or a lawnmower starts happening outside your window, something like that. So here are all the folks who we thought might be attending today. I'll have them introduce themselves when they start speaking, but Ryan Enger, who's here from the great state of Ohio, Dave Cernicek from Bridger Teton National Forest in Wyoming, and Liz Lacey has a bad cold, but she works on partnership wild scenic rivers up in New England, and Bob Stanley is retired from the Forest Service recently from Stanislaus National Forest. So when we first started talking about doing this session, oh, here's Bob coming in. We started talking about how should we be doing more with less? And then one of the people in the group said, how about when we happen to, what about having to do less with less? And then we just ended up with like, what about doing less? Or how do we approach doing that? Trying to do it with the most positive, productive attitude, and knowing that times have changed, and we have to deal with where we're at. So we're just going to go through a number of questions, and going to have those who are here. Bob Stanley, if you're joining us, please chime in. But for sure, Ryan and Dave, please introduce yourselves again, a little bit about what you do, and then we'll have you just go forward with your comments on these topics. And this is meant to be information sharing. There's no right or wrong. Hopefully you'll get some good ideas. You might even be inspired a little bit. So with that, let's go. And Ryan, why don't you kick us off?
Sure. Thanks, Risa. Like Risa said, my name is Ryan Ainger. I'm the River Ranger with Cuyahoga Valley National Park. I've been with the National Park Service for about 10 years now, mostly as a ranger, but also in a outdoor recreation planning capacity, which has given me a taste of both the field and seeing how we manage and what it does mean when we are in a position where we might not have as many of the resources, especially for river-specific programs. I am the only interpretive river ranger in my division at Cuyahoga Valley, and it's a new and small river program, right? And so if we, already are starting off with a growing program, it can be hard to add to, especially when other, parts of the park are also deferred and have needs as well. So when I see this and when we were discussing these topics, what my perspective has been at Cuyahoga Valley across the park is really to focus on our priorities. And for us, that is, frontline visitor services and protection of resources. And starting with that frames it a little bit easier for us. So it's not so daunting and it's not so, to the point where you're exhausted of thinking and planning forward with different amounts of resources you have previously, but just focusing back on your priorities and having that clear message across your staff has been something that has given me a little bit of comfort when we're facing challenges.
Dave, you want to chime in and then please
Sure.
introduce yourself again and then Bob after Dave.
Hi, my name is David Cernicek. I am the Wild and Scenic Rivers Coordinator for the Bridger Teton National Forest out of Jackson Hole, Wyoming. I started here late 90s and with a river program, which includes what we refer to as the Snake River Canyon. It's about 8 miles of whitewater that gets about 200,000 people on it in about 2 months of time. It's a super busy place and it's quite a circus and lots of outfitters and many things going on that the government couldn't afford or pay for way back then. Still not doing well with that. But when I started, there was like funding for like half my job and 2 trucks, and that was it. And so, built a river program from there. 2009, we got 350 miles of wild and scenic rivers added to our program. And lots of moving parts, lots of things going on, lots of needs for staffing that are difficult jobs, and lots of facilities that were degrading as we watched, built in the 80s, hadn't been maintained, hadn't been taken care of. And so started with nothing, ended up with a donation program that the community pushed to pay for river things early on that later became a nonprofit in the area. But uh, this is doing your best with less is where I've generally come from. There's never going to be enough funding in a river program for everything to get done the way you would love to do it, and you think other people might be doing it. But there's where there's a will, there's a way. It just takes thinking a little bit differently. But yeah, still here, Jackson Hole, 25 years later.
Bob, if you could just introduce yourself and just a little bit about your approach to this topic.
Sure. My name is Bob Stanley. I am a retired river ranger from the Stanislaus National Forest. I've worked for the Bureau of Land Management, National Park Service, Grand Canyon, and the Forest Service on the Seven Chalice National Forest, and then the Stanislaus National Forest. So I have about approximately 20 years of actual river ranger time in with the government. And then I also spent about another 20 years as a professional river guide, working from Alaska to Patagonia and over in the Himalayas. So my experience is a little bit like David's, except for a little bit with, not very much resources, and we were able, particularly on the Tuolumne, where I spent my last 15 years on the Stanislaus National Forest, we were able to get a river program going. Unfortunately, it also died when I retired. So, but that's the nature of the business. And so what we do is we continue on and continue to try to get folks to understand the value of rivers in North America and particularly in the government aspect.
Okay, so we're just going to go down to the next topic. If you could kind of address the question that's going to come up. Next one. Ryan, want to get started?
Yeah. So the next, the next reality and the next question is, what can we do to maximize our capacity, right? And especially when we're looking at, a season with already going into it with less capacity than previously. For us at Cuyahoga Valley, it is definitely to leverage and lean in and work with our partners across the water trail and across our watershed. And we've done that in a couple ways. Cuyahoga Valley has a friends group, the Conservancy for Cuyahoga Valley National Park, which is a tremendous supporter between helping us buy lands, helping us fund projects, helping us buy equipment. They recently were able to assist with a Art in the Park initiative to fund a mural through the park that is a small project. For them monetarily, they were able to cover it pretty easily, but the benefit it had to the visitor and the paddler when they start their experience in one of our most busy areas, it was tenfold that. So that is just one example. Other examples for us at Cuyahoga Valley have been to work with the metro parks, which for Cuyahoga Valley as an urban national park, we kind of rely on those metro parks almost like larger national parks work with Forest Service sites, is kind of those buffer areas around the national park boundaries. A great partnership between us and Summit Metro Parks to the south in Akron has been on a new access. We call it Northampton Point, where it's an essential takeout for a new access for their park. So they've helped us with funding and construction for that project, knowing that even though it's on national park lands, they'll be able to use that. So without our partners, those are just two huge projects. We're talking hundreds of $1,000s that we would not be able to complete anywhere near as quickly.
Dave?
We've been saying and trying to do more with less for decades now. It doesn't really work. We're continually expected to complete agency priorities on top of everything we've always been doing, and often the duties of unfilled positions with inadequate resources. Efficiencies can be found that may save hours of work and kind of get some of the job done, but doing more is impossible and unrealistic to ask people to do. That said, making things work takes a lot of creativity and willingness to try new things that are uncomfortable, and working with people you didn't think you'd ever be working with. But there are people that have the best interest of your river in mind, or some aspect of it, and partnerships is probably the main thing that is keeping us going anymore. When agency resources drop off and tough new rules come, whatever it is, there's always somebody out there willing to help you. You just have to find those people. But as I said before, do your best with less, and just focus on the things that absolutely have to get done. Reconsider your techniques on some of the things you have been doing. Really look close at things that we've always done, but we don't know why we do it, but it was being done when we got here, so we think it's important. But yeah, it's not a pretty world, especially right now for a few agencies, and that's kind of where we're at. Bob?
Bob, could you unmute yourself? You had roosters in the background. So.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes. They get started way before dawn for some reason. They're calling dawn in. Anyway, yes. What can we do to maximize our capacity? So, in the river world, you're generally not going to find a lot of support inside the government for what you're doing, because it's not generally a high priority. So what you have to do is you have to go out and figure it out on your own. And to do that, the first thing you need to do is you need to find a mentor inside your agency who can help you get support for getting partners. And that's going to be a pretty important thing to do, because without some overhead support, you're probably not going to get very much done. Having said that, particularly on the Tuolumne River, when I arrived there 15, 16 years ago, I had a very good management support for me, and I was able to build a program. We didn't even have a truck. We were borrowing the archaeology truck and other trucks to get to the water. So we ended up creating a program and talking with folks and getting folks to be involved. Our first folks we were involved with was individual private people who helped us working towards getting access to the Tuolumne improved to the point where it was a reasonable access. And we were able to do that over the course of about, about 9 years it took to get a couple of ramps on Forest Service land. And as we leveraged each little process. So for instance, with that, we'd get some money together on the private side. We got the local trust to act as our bank account. We showed up with a little money in there, and we kind of shamed the outfitters into, which are wonderful. I've worked for every one of them, so they're wonderful people. But into matching what we'd put each of them, which didn't get us enough to get the job done, but we just threw a Hail Mary and got to work on it and started doing the work without having the funding to finish the work. And that was like a Kevin Costner thing: build a baseball field and somebody will come and play on it. So we got that done. We also went out and got private funding to do a video for guidelines for the Tuolumne River, which was a 10-minute video that we produced for maybe probably $1,500, all private people, all volunteers, and just go out and beat the bushes. And you meet people on the water and you tell them what you're doing, and you keep calling them, and that's how we maximize our capacity. Is we just start beating the bushes and getting it done, and so that's how that goes.
Cool. Thank you. We have a few more questions or points. Let's see what's next. Wiggle
Yeah.
room. Are workarounds available without getting anybody in too much trouble?
Right. Yeah. Workarounds. And what does that look like? Right. And that can be hard to identify, but I think it's going back to identifying your priorities. Like, where are you trying to get to? What workarounds are available really depends on what you're working on and, trying to get around, right? If it's funding, there's partnerships. If it's capacity, I don't know if this is, I don't really like calling even of workarounds, because, I'm trying to get to a point where, like Bob said, our program has sustainability, right? I'm still at the point where we're borrowing trucks, so I completely understand how that goes. I don't have the capacity or the funds to hire someone with our base funding for our park this year, for my specific river program, right? We are going to focus on our interpretive visitor center and other needs, and I've never had a dedicated position from base funding because it's a new program. So not a workarounds, but I guess a work through. Instead of supervising a position this summer, I'm going to take that time and focus on finding grant opportunities or other income sources or other opportunities for positions, so that I do have some kind of sustainable workforce and built-in capacity. So it's more of a less of a workaround and more of a shift. I don't have anybody to supervise this season, so I'm shifting towards looking at those longer term solutions, using that time to learn a little bit more, to, like Bob said, find a good mentor or someone who can help me find maybe like a YCC position for the 2026 season.
Okay.
Yeah. Many of us end up working a lot of free hours and have really unbalanced work-life scenarios. That's not a solution or a workaround in any way. It just means a lot of trouble and bad feelings no matter what. Also, the agency is likely to see how much you're getting accomplished and expect more the next year. River budgets are not going up at all, and pretty rare to have an increase in budget. Congress has basically said we're not going to fund you adequately, but for what you need, we'll give you the ability to charge fees and use that money. So, fees is an option. It's something that we're going to hear, but they do take a lot of time and work to get them started. It's a over a year event, and once you do get it, you have to implement it. You have to have people on the ground to do all the things that you promised you were going to do with the fees. And for us here, it's a horrible reality to get our fee program finally approved by the Washington office, and 2 days later be told we can't hire seasonals. That's our reality here. And so, we said we'd have better staffing. We promised we'd do more things and provide more services and stuff like that. But reality is where we're at right now is we're not going to be able to do that if we don't have our usual, 5 to 10 seasonals out there. So big surprises always come, and be careful of what you ask for. When it comes down to wiggle room, workarounds is not a really good term to use. It implies that we don't have support of management and are being sneaky. And that's not what you ever want to be, is sneaking around officially. We're not trying to get around a difficult manager. We're just trying new techniques and tactics that might not have been tapped before. Having supporting management that's willing to give things a chance is critically important. Sometimes they don't care what you do. That's really nice too, because then you just do what you want. But there's good and bad ways to go about implementing new strategies. Continually hitting up your management, if asking them whether you can do something, and using yes or no questions doesn't always work as well as just giving status reports. Hey, this is what I'm doing. This is what's going on. This is what we're trying to accomplish. Just wanted to let you know about it, and sort of leaving it at that, and not put people in the position where they have to say no, because saying no is a lot easier than saying yes and being part of the solution. So a lot in how you present yourself and how you go about things is really critical. And it takes a whole different attitude. We don't say we can't. We do say, how can we get this work done, mostly legally, a new way? And there's different ways to do things. They're not exactly the way is the government way, but they can turn out to be a lot better than what you were doing. And they also can be a lot more efficient in what you're doing. So, yeah, back to you, Risa.
Bounce to Bob. Bob, any thoughts?
Oh, Bob, I forgot Bob. Sorry, Bob.
That's okay.
No worries. Hey, if you're going to work for the government, you have to play basically by their rules, is what David just pointed out. Once you get your 1 year probation in, you're good to go to start. What are we doing it? Wiggle room and our workarounds available. Give you an example, NEPA. I couldn't get any NEPA done from the forest, which is where the NEPA basically originates. And so I started finding out about NEPA and what was necessary and how to do a categorical exclusion, which is first level of NEPA. And on a lot of projects, that's what you can do and get. And so what I would do would make friends. I'd get specialists to come on a river trip in their spare time, and then provide me with input on their specialty about the project I wanted to do. That's a workaround. Now, David mentioned that you don't want to be spending a lot of extra time, because that's not what you're supposed to be doing. We have this thing called Maxiflex in the federal government and Forest Service, and we used that heavily because our overhead would refuse to pay any overtime except for on 3 holidays each year. So we couldn't even do a river trip without using Maxiflex, because you couldn't get it done in 8 or a 10-hour day oftentimes. So you have to look everywhere for these workarounds, and I'm all about workarounds myself. That was the only way I could ever get anything done, and we accomplished quite a bit. On the issue of fees, I am not a big fee guy. I think the public lands are for the public, and I think charging them for the public, charging the public to just go enter the lands or use the river, I believe that's a little bit of a stretch. And I never followed that. We did create a fee system for permits for the Tuolumne, because people ended up not being able to get permits because of the restrictions on the front desk when we were doing it that way. So we went to the rec.gov thing. It was fairly controversial, but we got it done at a very low level. Immediately after that, I had a change in overhead, and they wanted to bump up the fees, by 500%, and then keep it going if they could. So I'm not a big fan of that, but it's a possibility, and it gets done. And if so, I will campaign against it as my role as a citizen. Other ways, yeah, you call around and you get people in. You try to get your local foundations and trusts and watershed councils. You get on the phone and you're talking all the time to, in my case, Friends of the River or American Whitewater or other people, and you try to get them interested in the issues that are going on. We haven't had access to the put in on the Tuolumne now since 2020, early 2023. And for a variety of bureaucratic reasons. And so you just got to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. You got to be careful on that, because you're not going to be able to remain a unknown factor forever. But that's what you have to do, and you have to take some risks in order to get anything done in this in this environment, social and governmental environment we live in right now. Okay. Where's Risa?
Oh, we might have lost Risa. It looks like the presentation went down too. So she should probably be hopping back on in a second. I think the next question, once we get I don't have access to the presentation, or I'd pop it up, is on partnerships. Let me see if it's. So it's who can we lean on for whom partnerships will benefit their mission and members, right? And just to start and fill in the time while Risa comes back, I mentioned two big projects we had with partners, a mural that we had completed underneath a bridge along the river access, and then that was completed by our friends group, and then a pretty expansive river access site that is a linchpin across a huge section of our water trail that didn't have access before. And I think at Cuyahoga Valley, I'm very fortunate, and I recognize a little privileged that all of our partnerships, for the most part, basically predate the park, or at least were established right around the time the recreation area was established 50 years ago. And so I think it's easy for me to sit back here and talk about all these great opportunities that we've kind of lined up, but I think what's more important is getting at those partners that you might not know are out there, or there's partnership groups that you haven't worked with and haven't leveraged yet. I think the more I get into river management and the more I've been part of this community, not only as a river ranger, but as as a citizen, as a paddler, I am surrounded by the number of subgroups and communities and friends groups and just groups of people who get out and paddle, even if they don't have a club name. For us, we have a really widespread group called the Keel Haulers that are all private boaters, but are one of our biggest stakeholding groups. And I think it is important to reach them, to get in touch with them, to make sure that, to Bob's point, like that's the group that you want them to know your name, because, then you can kind of dissolve some of those barriers and work towards the same mission, and work towards those same common goals. But just get familiar with who's out there, I think, is really important.
Yeah, the partnerships, are crucial, at least from programs I've worked in. The more you have, the better off you can be, and they're anywhere and everywhere. I've always tried to be very as inclusive as possible when I go after something, and try and drag as many people as I can to the table to solve problems. Some of the people that you think are going to be the best thing and the great solution turn out to be messy, but people you never saw coming can change your whole world and make a solution possible that you never saw coming. It's a lot more than just the local support, local river supporting nonprofits. Search and rescue groups, other river management programs, community foundations, schools, whitewater clubs, universities, county planning, volunteer.gov, sheriff's departments, fish and game, outfitters. Outfitters are really important, and other business owners. There's somebody out there that wants to get something done with you and is willing to. They want something from you too, usually, or they want something that's accomplished, that will accomplish what they'd like to see happening. For me, I've always tried to boat with anybody who said they wanted to go down the river with me, because that's given me connections to places where I would have never found myself before. Years ago, when I used to do kids programs, I trying to get kids programs out there. Nobody has any money. Nobody has any time. Everybody wants to do it. I got a really good group together for that, but we still didn't figure out how to get the money, and nobody had money. One of the strangest things was I invited the Center for the Arts and their many organizations here to the table, and guess what? Art people have money, and they were into doing creative things on the national forest and on the river, that type of thing, and that was kind of where the largest part of our funding for all the kids programs we were doing came from, was our art people. There's so much out there that people that you never saw coming that turn out to be the key partner that makes so much possible. For me, for years, we've had outfitters make donations to help the river program, because we don't have adequate funding. They throw in $1 a person. Our whitewater guys, our fishing guys, don't participate as much, but our whitewater outfitters agreed to give $1 per person years ago, and that's pretty decent when use can be over 100,000 from just whitewater outfitters, and so we keep that as a bank account that is on the outside of the Fed. It's our interpretive association was able to step up, Grand Teton Association, and they're basically our banker. There is a great fundraising thing in our community through our community foundation that gets dollars matched, and each year outfitters give to this Old Bills Fun Run. All that money gets matched, which makes it even bigger, and it goes into our Grand Teton account. And that was something that we made happen here, that was such an important piece of what we do and accomplish. I hate to brag, but yeah, I do have a credit card that I can go out and buy things with to get a project done. And having the financial part on the outside is really nice to have when you're doing strange things that may not be the typical government way of doing things. But finding those partners out there that have something for you, that can do something, that are willing to do something. I've had excavator companies build fishing locations because they all like to fish and have nowhere to go, or they wanted to have a parking lot, that type of stuff. This stuff is out there. It's possible. You just got to find the right partner is mainly where I'm coming from. Bob?
Well, I support that Dave's approach 100%, maybe 120%. We have to find ways to get things done, and you're not going to find them inside the agency oftentimes. The partnership thing is critical. Another critical factor that Dave just referred to is finding somebody who can act as a fiduciary for you, to a place to hold funds from your GoFundMe project or your uh, or whatever it is you use to publicize what it is you're doing. Once you have that, then you're not obligated to get money through the government. The government needs to know that you're doing it, of course, but they don't. As long as they're willing to, as long as your overhead's willing to operate in that fashion, you can do that. And that's what we did with ramp access, and we also did that with our guideline videos, and we did it with that. We also put YouTube videos on. We had a YouTube channel that we used. There's a Forest Service YouTube channel which we used for a couple of videos, and then then we would just get on YouTube and put stuff on that. I don't even know if that was if it was my overhead liked it or not, because I never even told them about it. So just to let you know that we pulled it off, and it can be pulled off. And oftentimes when we're out net right now, we're in a pretty critical place in the world as a whole. So there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of wiggle room to be had in getting things done. What you really need is this kind of a soul-filled channel in yourself that you're going to get something done, and it's going to be done in a way that a heartfelt way that has the love of natural resources. In the Forest Service, we have our motto is caring for the land and serving the people. And if that runs through your whole body, including your brain, then you can get a lot of things done, and there's a lot of wiggling that you can do. But you're not always going to be successful, and you have to persevere. David, Brian, where'd Brian go?
I'm
Did
still
you
here.
check it?
Ah,
And I think Risa might be back as well.
Yeah, thanks. We had a little technical difficulties here. But thanks for keeping on. And what I had on the screen was the mural that Ryan was talking about earlier. I just thought it was a beautiful, beautiful image. I know we've talked now about, partnerships and the importance of those. And just keep on going. One more point. And our guests have talked a little bit about this, but if we viewed 2025 as a new normal instead of a 1-year exception, we might approach the future a little bit differently. Guys want to talk about that?
Yeah, that's a hard one to think that this might be a new normal, but then I reflect on it a little bit and think that there's not a ton. Things have gotten tighter, but listening to Bob, listening to Dave, listening to those who've been, through the careers they've been through, then all the years of experiences. River programs have always, had their ups and downs. River programs are always very popular with the people, with visitors, but it's not always a priority. It hasn't been a priority for Cuyahoga Valley National Park until 2016, and we just celebrated our 50th anniversary. So to think that there was a solid 40 years where we didn't really, obviously there was environmental concerns going on, but we didn't really have any kind of river program. And, hearing Bob and hearing Dave talk about how they've had to find ways to get through and ways to get things done without the support and building up programs and talking about sustainability. It feels to me that 2025 is just an extension of that. We are, I feel like river users and river professionals are, a tenacious bunch and good at finding ways to get things done and good at improvising situations and making do, right? We've all been out on the water and I'm sure have gotten back, through just grit and determination. But yeah, I think this is just an extension of what we have seen, and it might be a little bit harder, but I think it's something that we will be able to get through the same as we've gotten through in the past.
Yeah, Dave or Bob, you can
Yeah.
take the baton or pass. Feel free.
No, I don't know where we're at. But I see the trending line appears to be going downwards when it comes to funding and resources available to us. And sometimes they go up a little bit, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they go drastically down. For the Forest Service this year, we're not allowed to have seasonal workers, our temporary workers that we always staff up with in the river program. But they kind of make things happen on the ground. It's not me, it's the people, and the people working hard on the beach and the ramps and on the water. The new administration seems hyper focused on cutting massive amounts. Makes me nervous. During a previous administration, the Army Corps was well instructed not to issue fines or punishments for those who violated things like the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act. So that was a really weird experience when the enforcement arm of Wild and Scenic is not the Forest Service, it's the Army Corps of Engineers who deals with that part. And so, we lost our enforcement arm for a few years there. I was super happy though. We had the county planning office was a good partner with us, and they were able to do a lot of things that we were unable to accomplish with our relationship with the Army Corps, and illegal projects were dealt with that we were not able to do anything to these folks if the Army Corps was not. I'm hoping that's not coming again. This, with this year coming, I know definitely BLM and Forest Service are taking hits. I'm assuming the Park Service is too. This is a great time to take a deep dive into what you're doing, and with your processes and programs and stuff, and really ask, is this necessary? Are we doing this task because that's the way it was when I got here and we just kept doing it? Is there a better way to do this? Many things can be well-meaning, but might not be as critical as you once thought. There's things like data collection that you do nothing with. Why collect data, piles of data, if you're not going to use them? Or technology has changed for something, and it really doesn't make sense to do it the long form way anymore. So taking a look at things that you could do differently or get rid of is a really good thing to do when you don't have as much support, and kind of deciding your program to be adaptive and be able to react well with when big surprises come your way, like no workers, no rangers. Never make yourself too big and powerful and too laid out there with too many needs, because everything can change, and you can be sitting at square one with no seasonals or no money or no anything. But it's all about adaptation. Sometimes taking chances on something uncomfortable ends up being the best thing you ever did, and you just don't necessarily always see it until you've gotten on, you jumped on the cart and it's rolling downhill. But really a lot is accomplishable with partners, whether they're official partners with agreements with you or partners that met in an eddy and wanted to do something and volunteered to do something. That stuff's out there, but it's requiring greater levels of creativity and willingness to try stuff. Bob?
Well, again, I support all of that in spades, if you will. The partnerships that you can try to get going and keep trying to get going until you get them going aren't often many, and they often come from places you hadn't known about before. So asking people for help is a great thing to do. And for instance, in the program on the Stanislaus Forest, we partnered up with the local community college and got a 2-year river ecology and management program going that was focused on technical issues. So whitewater boating was one of them. Learning how to whitewater boat because we get people applying for river ranger jobs who, they've done nothing. Maybe they actually were a permit checker on somewhere or something like that. And so we put together a program to develop technical skills in river management, sampling, aquatic biology sampling, riparian zone sampling. On the Tuolumne, we suffer from that. The sediment transition zone suffers from scouring from industrial use of the river. And so we were interested in trying to develop a program that would address that issue. So we were in touch with the University of California, California Academy of Sciences. Columbia College was instrumental in that portion. And then we now have a river program for them. And my hope is that they will be able to step in and take over management of the actual river for us at some point. And it'll just be the management of the river will be farmed out from the agency to a educational institution. So those are solutions, if you will, to that. In addition, I think that as you're doing this, if you're either inside or outside the agency, looking to spread the word about what's going on in detail so that you can target specific partners to help you do specific things. In this case, the Columbia College, I targeted them to actually do what the government is supposed to be doing is river patrols, which was written into the 1988 management plan, which we've never updated on that river. And at this stage of the game, we never got very far with river management with river ranger programs in the Forest Service. Typically, when a river would be designated wild and scenic, it would come with a river ranger, one permanent, maybe only us at 13 and 13, but at least a permanent employee. And then as soon as that employee left, usually their position has not been re-upped oftentimes. So we need to campaign on every kind of different level. So the commitment's going to be enormous, but don't let it be overwhelming. Make sure you get out on the water.
Bob, if we could, thank you guys for all that perspective. Bob, could you narrate? I'm going to go through the illustration, kind of the story of the project that you talked about a little bit. So we have some of those photos here. And if you could just say what it is, you can sort of tell by looking at the photos, but if you could just explain what it is that we're looking at. And this is an unbelievable project of doing a lot with not much.
Okay, so what you're looking at here is the put in to Tuolumne River at Merrill's Pool as it was. And then now you're looking at a group of volunteers. So at the beginning, we had a big fire in 2011, and the Forest Service bought about maybe about $200,000 worth of railroad ties. And so they're all stacked up at their district in the district boneyard. And so I just got the district flatbed and our volunteers, and we brought about 300 railroad ties down to Merrill's Pool and stacked them up there and started working on making a put in out of railroad ties. Well, my overhead, which was really good people, they said, well, Bob, you can't do that because we can't use railroad ties anymore because of the creosote. I said, okay. So I ran into, is he here? That's the guy in the center facing you. That's Daryl London's dad, Kevin. I don't see Daryl right there, but Kevin, that guy with on his shoulder, he and his son run a concrete. They're a concrete contractor in Tuolumne County, and they decided they're Fisher people. They decided to help us out. So that's that same flatbed. Now instead of railroad ties, we're stacking up bags of cement. Okay, so then it was at that stage that we were able to get we got the private folks to put some money into to the local trust, and then I called up the outfitters and said, hey, I got the private folks to give us some money. What do you guys think about matching that? Because the outfitters use the ramps more than anybody else. And they said, okay, but they were like a little bit hesitant because, they have to pay 3% of their fees, their profit, 3% of their gross to the Forest Service to operate there. But they said, okay. So they did. And so at that point, we were able to buy rebar, get we had a pumper, a guy who pumped for Kevin and Daryl, offered his crew for free. We formed it up. Myself, Dave Michaels, my co-ranger at the time, did that. We poured that cement that you see in the picture here on the left ramp. That was in 2017. You still see a bunch of railroad ties over there that we're still hanging on to. And that picture on the left is the slide that is on the picture on the right. That's the slide coming in. That is that's a outfitter equipment rig with the slide up on top of it coming down. And then there's a little excavator picking that thing up, and it's going to put it down. And that was a guy who did that work for me because I offered to introduce him to the district ranger because he wanted to do stump pulling for the Forest Service. Thanks for reminding me, Risa. And then on that final shot, that's Guy Henderson, and he offered. He has a CNC shop in right near Groveland there, and he offered to let us use his shop to assemble that ramp, the slide part of the ramp there, and we did that. It took us a while to get that done. David and I, neither of us are metal workers, and then when we started welding it, Guy came through and looked at what we were doing, and I said, yeah, and I showed him, and he said, I tell you what, Bob, I'll weld that together for you. So
Thanks,
that's
Bob. Yeah, that's awesome. That's an unbelievable feat and an unbelievable, to me, example of partnership, being very, very.
yeah, that project there, like if you look at Yosemite, they did a ramp at the bottom end of their valley run that cost them $4 million. We spent a total of $75,000 in acquired funds from outside the agency, and it was probably about, we got maybe $5,000 from the agency, and then the labor for David and I, which was probably on the order of for the amount of work we did, it was probably about $12 to $14,000 of just come out of regular salaries. Yeah. So less than 100,000, we put that ramp in.
Well, thanks. Hopefully some of these stories have been kind of either sparked some ideas or questions, like or you want to share what you're thinking about, either what you're planning, what you are hoping to think about. If you have questions for these specific guys, and as you think about your questions, I just want to mention that we thank you for being here. We have a couple of events coming up. We'd love to have you subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have well over 250 videos of meetups, of roundtables, of webinars at the River Training channel. And here's some things that are coming up. Next month, some focus on water trails, our new water trails working group, an unbelievable trip on the Buffalo River, Wild Scenic Buffalo, and then a short course in the spring. I'm gonna stop sharing. Please think about some questions, and I'm gonna put the link to the survey in the chat. Any question? Oh, let's see, there's one question. Oh, compliment from Travis in Nebraska. Any questions? If you would like to just come off mute and maybe share some ideas or suggestions about how you are approaching this season, that even if it is a new normal, it's going to require a little bit of creativity on many people's parts, I would say. And feel free to just take yourself off mute and let us know what you think. Well, for our panelists, any kind of final words would you like to share before we leave? Any words of wisdom? Here's the survey, if you don't mind taking a second to fill it out.
I think Bob said it best. Try to get out on the water and just enjoy it.
Yeah. You only have one life, so make every moment count. Just keep it in yourself. Every moment you can, enjoy what you're doing, and try to keep your goals in mind as you navigate your way through bureaucratic
South Royalton, Vermont, 05068.
Anything
Definitely
else?
always look for people that are willing to help you and actually listen to them. Do not tell them what they need to be telling you. Actually listen to people, what they want to do, what they'd like to see, and getting down on that level is really, really important. It's strange because I've been out there 100 times going, what do you guys want to see? How do you want me to use your money? How did this and that? And they may not hear you. A lot of my success has been working with my whitewater outfitters who see, things in the big picture. It's not all about me. There are people that shocked me early on in being a ranger, and they're like, you need to hire more rangers. It's like, you want more people to keep an eye on you and get you in trouble. They're like, well, yeah, if those ramps aren't staffed, then we can't get it. If we can't get out of the takeout, all of our customers miss their dinner reservations and they're furious with us. Hire as many as you need and we will help pay for them because there's something in it for us. Getting in and out of that ramp that can be a nightmare on a busy day is critical to their business, and that's the way they've always seen things. And it's been a joy to work with folks that are like that, instead of only going, what's in it for me and why do I have to spend my money? So the government should be spending money on this stuff. The government isn't going to spend money on this stuff, and getting people past that is really, really important to find a new reality. Thanks for letting me be here today.
Thanks, you guys. Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate your being here today. Happy New Year, and we'll see you next month.